Hello, welcome to Tech Dicted. In the previous videos, we've talked about dry running and we've also talked about pseudocodes. And now I want us to talk about flowcharts. So while while pseudocodes are false code, that means you're writing them in sentences and it's not graphical, as I mentioned. That's an disadvantage, sorry. Flowcharts are visual aids, okay, if I may call them. They're visual aids. They allow you to represent an algorithm or a piece of code visually using certain symbols that have been given to you. We have specific symbols for specific things. For example, if you have, I don't know what this is called, it's a rounded rectangle, a rectangle with rounded corners, I think, if I may call it that. A rectangle with rounded corners may represent start and stop. Diamond, if I may call it. It represents the decision making. For example, if it's an if statement, that's decision making, and others that we're going to look at in this video. Yeah, so the process, if you may want to know, the process of making or drawing a flowchart is called flowcharting. And so let's look at this flowchart. Yeah. So when it comes to flowcharts, we said we have different symbols. For example, this shows the flow of actions, if I may call it. If something, let's say you've started your program. I mentioned this shows start. Then that symbolizes the next action to be done is maybe inputs, right? So this is what we're looking at. So different symbols or shapes represent different actions. Okay, so we have, this is the start or stop. This round one is the start or stop. We have input or output. Let me just say IO. Then we have processing. This is where there's manipulation of data. Arithmetic operations, such and such. We've said this is the flow line. This shows decision. If statements, this is what you use. On-page connector, off-page connector, yeah, and such and such. So this is just the symbols, the shapes we use. Let me just do this so that you won't be looking at a lot of things. So we have the flow line. We're going to do an example with all this or some of this included. A flow line. We have terminals, that's the start and stop. We have the input and output. We have the processing, decision, on-page connector, off-page connector, and the predefined process or function. Yeah, so those are some of the symbols we use when working with flowcharts. An example would be this. We are asked to find all the roots of a quadratic equation. Do not focus on the mathematical bit or anything. That's not our focus for now. Right now, we are looking at how to draw a flowchart. So whatever is written inside really doesn't really matter, because right now, I want to just show you this symbolizes the start. This symbolizes the stop. And because data is more than this page, I have used the off-page connector to show data from this page proceeds to this next page. Okay, then we have, this is processing. This is processing. Okay, then we have this, which represents, so we have data. We have this is not input or output, so this is processing. So we have flow line. Sorry, it's not flow line. This is terminal, right? Then we have declaring variables and calculating. So these are processing, okay? Then we come to this decision making. So this is the decision. Is something greater than the other? If true, do this. If false, do this other one. So if true, we have this is processing again, and this is also processing, this is also processing, because we are doing calculations, we are performing calculations. Okay, then we have a display. Now displaying this is an output, and an output and input, we use this shape, right? Then after that, we have the off-page connector, and we have another off-page connector here. That's to connect, to show that data is moving from here and it's continuing on this other page. And then this is our terminal. We are ending the program. So our focus was not really on what was in it. It was just how we use the different shapes to represent different things. These are just some of the shapes we may use to represent whatever we need to represent using our flowchart. Yeah, so we have, this is just a flowchart, but there is the Dragon flowchart. There are different ways you can represent data. There's this is just a flowchart. There's the Dragon charts. There is also the UML. A pseudocode is another way you can represent data before you code it, or just when you're thinking about the process. So there are different ways you can represent, but for now we've looked at flowcharts and we've also looked at pseudocodes. Yeah, so that's it. Let me see you in the next video. Thank you.